What's up, y'all? This is Christ Coach of the podcast, and we are joined by my lovely sis today, Tsola. She is a beautiful artist and a very talented woman, and we're having a great conversation. We are talking about mourning the life that you thought was yours.
And moving forward after loss.
My friend.
Remember when we first met?
Was it at the...
I think it was Complex Con.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like, was that on the nerd job?
Yeah, dude. You were just a hoot.
Wait.
I loved you so much.
Girl, we can... Okay, so backstory, y'all. This is my friend from LA. This is Tsola. She's a very talented artist and creative and everything. But yeah, we met, what was that, like 2018?
17.
17? And probably my biggest job to start my career.
Me too.
Was that yours too? Yeah.
I just moved to LA 2017.
Yeah. We met at Complex Con dancing for NERD and Pharrell. And yeah, kind of just sparked our relationship since then. And yeah, a lot has happened.
A lot has changed for sure.
Oh my gosh. So
Hey,
Calvin. Calvin's also here. But just to introduce her, yeah. So yeah, Tsola, tell us a little bit of like what's going on in your life right now. What's up?
Ooh, change, transition. Honestly, it was really, to be transparent, it was a mourning season for me. I was mourning. That's me.
Hey.
Yeah, for sure.
That goes into our topic today too.
It does. Love versus loss. That's like a hard hitting topic.
Yeah.
I liked deep stuff.
Yeah,
so
no,
let's go
really.
with that one.
Like when you chose that one, I was like, oh, this could go so many ways.
Deep,
like, where are we going with it?
Yeah.
So could you tell us why you chose that?
I think it was fitting, and I feel like in your seasons of life, we have to face things, and I think I've been in a place of learning when to be private, but also knowing when to share like my struggles. And I feel like it was just a good time when you reached out. I was like, come on the podcast. I was like, oh, I feel like it'd be a good time to speak on the testimony, because I feel like we, especially as believers, like believe that we speak on the testimony after the fact, but also the testimony is also the process in the healing. So I was like, okay, let's talk about it. Because it's, you just you want to pop out when it's good and clean, but sometimes you gotta, that is the healing in the overcoming in the mess,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like scared to get into this topic.
I'm ready
I don't know what's
to get
gonna
into
happen.
it.
Actually, let's go back to
I'm ready to get into yeah, you were talking. Okay, so this is a safe place, right? We're open to being vulnerable here. So I want to like kind of get to it as much as you want to share. What is, when you're talking about this is a season of mourning or something that you're going through, something that you're living through right now, what can you speak to that right now?
I feel like, me and Key, we met almost 6 years ago, coming next month, as I was embarking on a journey that I never thought I would. So long story short, grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, and always knew I wanted to be a dancer. Was just what God had for me. And then I faced a lot of turbulence when I was going out of college, because I wanted to go to be a dancer in New York, and I thought that was just going to be my thing. And then I didn't get into school in New York. And then the school I did get to, I couldn't afford it. So I was just, it's so funny I think about it, because 6 years ago I was mourning during the summertime. I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to go to school in New York to be this dance major. And then I ended up going to Morgan State. Then I transferred to UBC. And then somehow I ended up leaving school to go to LA, and then was a professional dancer all in on the West Coast. So I was doing that for the past 6 years. And I was just like, I just thank God. I kept reminding myself like, yo, I'm living the word when the God says like he'll do exceedingly and abundantly. I was like, I never could have asked for this. Like, I was trying to be a ballerina in New York, and I'm literally like dancing on tour with the greatest artists in LA. Like, you know what I mean? You can't plan for that or ask for it. At least not me. So, and yeah, I just felt like, I think we were talking about it a little bit on the phone, and I was like, I feel like it was just time to close the season. And I was happy, and I was like, okay, I felt called to go to East Coast now. I said, okay, God, well, I don't really desire to go to New York anymore. Like maybe when I was 16, but now being 26, I'm kind of over it. But I felt called to leave. So I packed up my bougie little apartment and gave away all my stuff, and I left, and I was like, onward to next. And then I'm literally sitting at home, and I was like, this is not what I thought it was gonna look like.
Wow.
And you know, I allowed myself to mourn because I was like, man, God had plans. Like, I didn't even want that in the first place. You start having that type of dialogue. I said, I didn't even want to go to LA. Then I feel like you asked me to put it down, which I was so happily to put it down because I knew it was a gift, but I didn't know like the valley could get so dark and so deep, you know. And especially I believe you know my best friend Gia, who passed away, or at least know of her. She was also a dancer. She passed away from suicide, and I was like, God, now you know, like I don't want that same thing to put me in that dark space where I feel like there was no way out, because that was an issue for us as artists who always feel like we get such high highs but really low lows.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why this topic really stood out to me, and I was like, okay, let's talk about it, because I'm like, yeah, like I'm mourning like a life. Like it's like dead and gone, and now, and you know, we all know as people, like some things have to die in order for things to come back up. But I didn't realize how strenuous the process it would be for me, and that was the fight for my life for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So when that season ended, you said you kind of felt that it was over and you need to move on. What was that like? Was it just a word from God, like, hey, it's time to move? Did something happen and it was just like, okay, I need to move? What was that like?
I feel like my season has been over for a little while, but you know, I think I was learning when God speaks, it's not always an immediate move. So I feel like he was speaking to me. He speaks to me a lot through music, through media, through just coincidences. So I would see things and be like, and then spark a thought. So that was happening for a couple years. And I feel like the one thing that made me move immediately was after I was doing something in the water festival. I was on my way back to LA, and I'm like sitting at my terminal in Atlanta at a layover flight. This random dude was like whispering my name. I thought it was like God. So I was just like, hey. And then I look up, and it was a guy that I knew, that I met once in LA. He was like, and I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here? He explained, and he was like, oh, I'm just helping my dad close out his business. Shout out to Connor if you end up listening to this, because it was him that definitely was like, okay, this is God. So long story short, he was like, I'm moving from LA to New York. And I was like, my spirit was like, it's like it jumped. I was like,
Yeah.
what the freak? We're literally in like Atlanta. How do we meet here on this random day? And he was like, yeah, I just felt like I got complacent. I had to move. I knew it. That was that day I turned to my other friend Alex, who I was traveling with. And I was like, I think I got to move. And I promise you, went back to LA, called my best friend Blair. I was like, I'm leaving. And I started packing up my place. I felt like if that's not God, I don't know what else is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's quite the transition, because it's like it takes a process for you to feel like, okay, this is trickling into this moment, but for you to have that aha moment where it's like, okay, this is it. This is the confirmation I needed. It's almost like it happens over time and then it happens all of a sudden. So then I think even when it does switch and you're like, okay, I've already committed to this move and like I'm already changing my life and going through this transition, why am I still feeling resistance? Even though this is what I've already come to terms with, this is already something that I've also like just come to accept. Why am I still facing these feelings? Even though like this was a choice that I made. Because I was feeling the same thing when I moved back from LA. This was during COVID. And if anything, I was like, well, I'm going to make it a thing where I'm ending my career, my dance career, because I want to, not because I was forced to, because I had an injury or whatever happened. Like I'm actually closing the door and hanging up these shoes because I want to. But then coming home is like, oh, well, this is completely different. Is this what I thought? Is this what I said I wanted? You know? So can you talk about how you made that switch? Yes. But in the process of you coming back home, what were those first like few weeks like?
I feel like right when I got off the plane, I thought I would be super ecstatic. I was like, I did it. I obeyed God. Like, I'm going to New York after all these years of wanting this dream. Like, it's finally come to pass. Like, maybe God is answering my prayers way back then. Way different than what I imagined, but maybe this is it. Child, I just feel like a loser. Like, to put it as frank as possible, I was like, man, like, could we live, like, it's such a glamorous life. And, like, I'd never felt that I was someone that was ignored growing up, but you know, when you're on, that's why I don't really, perspective, social media I was going to mention, like, it's like I share something with another bigger name and it made me feel validated. Yeah. So I was like, what validates me now if I'm not doing this career? What makes me important and special? And people want to hear me. People are like, come teach me, come talk to me, asking me for advice if I wasn't doing this.
Right.
And I was going through that process. I was like, okay, well, I know that I have value with or without it, but this is what people saw and were like, dang, Shola, you doing this? Like, people were telling me you made it out the mud. I'm like, DMV is not the mud. Like, I would come back and raise children here. You know what I mean? So I was battling all those thoughts, and I realized that like it wasn't really something that I felt. It was more so me, how I felt about how people were perceiving me. And that made me feel like a loser. It made me feel like I was failing, you know, made me feel like I gave up, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, you left LA. You know, everyone knows that if you leave, it's like you're not making money or you're just not getting opportunities. And I was like, well, I did it all. And it's crazy because God answered my prayers. I said, God, I don't want to dance anymore. I want to do music now. I want to add value in art in a different way. And he was like, okay. So I thought it was going to be like glory to glory. You know, I didn't know like glory and valley down, then back up. You know what I mean? Like you don't expect it that way. So that was just part. And I do feel like when God was showing me my heart, it was so broken. It was so jaded. Like, you know, I thought that like I was just like the Christian girl who's like representing God in all these really obscure rooms, and coming back here and having to be still. I was like, yeah, like there's no way I could have went into my next like this. I would have like dropped the ball for sure. I would have been like super offended off of everything. I just was. And that was just like the reality of living a life in entertainment for the past 6 years. So that's why I was definitely it was just like, oh, my life. I thought it would be more glamorous.
Yeah. It's definitely an identity shock. Identity shock, because like you said, like you put your weight in all these other, I call them plastic trophies, because that's how I felt after I did gigs, where I'm like, great, like I did this cool job, it's on my reel, my resume, whatever, and then I got people back home being like, wow, that was so awesome, I saw you on TV, blah blah blah. And then you go back home after the gig and you're like, I just paid rent and I'm back to zero. And it's literally, it felt like a plastic trophy. Like I worked so hard for this moment and it doesn't even reward me residuals. You know what I mean? So it's like having that identity coming from LA and then coming back to the DMV, where you're trying to figure out, well, you already know your worth because you find your worth in Christ, right? Like you already have that. But on a level of like what your purpose is, like, have you kind of tapped into that now that you've had like your stillness? Like,
I think it's funny because when I was feeling so emptied, I would literally just like have to be like, God, who am I? But also like, I still have these desires. Like, are they just out of my flesh, or are they really God-given desires? Because if they're not, take them out. Like, we can move on. Like, it's okay if I don't need to, if I don't get to these accolades, if they're not from you, it's fine, but I need you to take it out. And I felt like throughout the years, they were still there. And I was just wondering, like, what is the issue? I was like, okay, because, you know, we go through seasons and trials so we can learn lessons to prepare for our next. And I was like, God, it's not like I haven't been broke before. It's not like I have been unemployed. So what I need to learn now? So getting to that, when I was like, okay, I don't want to go through this again later in life. So what is it that I have to learn? And I feel like I just had to, I feel like what comes to mind is idolatry. Like you want the dream so much, so you're just like, I couldn't have like happiness or peace until I got there. And I was like, God, I'm not living. Like, I just feel like I'm waiting for you to give me the job opportunity or put me in this next place, because I know I'm supposed to be there, but in the middles are really hard. And I think God was like, we all know God is Alpha and Omega, but also like, he's also the middle. And he's like, and I just prayed. I feel like even last night I was so down and out, and I was like, all right, God, like, don't give me the job until you give me your joy. Like, do not give me no breakthrough until I'm complete now, because this will happen again. So how do I get to that point? And I think God just wanted my heart again, which was weird to me, because I felt like he already had it, because I was so down to give up anything. I was like, leave, fine, do this, okay, great, don't do that, great. And I was like, well, I thought you had it, but some, you know, his thoughts are not our thoughts, and his ways are not our ways. So I think that was the biggest like thing I needed to learn. I'm like, you know, we do believe that all this stuff is really going to reach a lot of people, but, you know, as they all say, the cliche of like new levels, new devils, it was just, I underestimated like the preparation it required to get to like that next level.
Yeah, I think that's big. And you kind of said it like you thought you were going to go from glory to glory. I've definitely experienced that before. It's like from one big thing to another big thing. He's like, no, you went through a process to get to that big thing. You got to go through another process to get to the next big thing. And it's not fun when you have to start over. I remember in high school when I played football, I got all the way up to varsity level. I was one of the best players. College came along and they were like, yeah, you got to start back from the bottom. I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to play football. I'm good.
Very much so.
But I want to go back to something you kind of touched on, and you were talking about that period of recognizing that you had a loss and then going through that mourning period. And like both of you, how important is it to like actually go through that mourning period and allow yourself to go through that?
I would say it's crucial. I think it's like the defining moments of what leads into your next chapter. Because yeah, you get so used to this caliber that you're at, and then for you to make a transition, like there's other pieces of your character that needs to be explored, and there's only one way that God can do that. And he takes the most important thing from you and is like, great, let me snatch this for you because I need you to see that, like you said, like there was a little bit of idolatry attached to this, and I need you to have me at your foreground. Like that needs to be your basis. So I think to go through that morning, and this I felt in numerous ways, like since I parted from LA, like whether it was from the career that I was having, whether it was like from relationships or just dreams that I had, like I mourned like 3 different things in one season. So I literally was like, I'm gonna be in a hole. I'm not talking to anybody because I don't even know what words can come up because I'm like on thin ice right now. But it was in those times where it's like I went through cycles of it, where I would keep coming back to that same low bottom. And every time I came back, it was like, it wasn't like I was going down. It was like almost like I was spiraling upwards, because every time I would come back down again, I'd be like, okay, God, where can I serve you here? Or what are you trying to teach me here? And how can I connect with you more? Because last time that I was here, like it was not nice. It was not enjoyable. So I think going down into that morning, it sucks. It's always going to suck. But I think the more that we shift our perspective towards why is this happening to me rather than what are you doing for me, God, then the morning isn't so bad. Like you're still going to feel it, but it's just not going to feel as heavy because it's not all your weight. It's not your weight. It's God's weight. And he's just letting you hold it for a second so that he can lift it up. Show you that he's God.
Yeah, and like you said, like during those periods, you learn so much, and that's kind of how you have to approach God. Like, okay, what am I supposed to take out of this? And the next time that mourning period comes up, you're better equipped to deal with it because of the last one, and you get better and you get better at it, and you learn so much out of it. Yeah.
What'd you say?
What the thought that came to mind? The process is part of character development. The idea comes to mind like you don't care as deeply and passionately for homeless people until you've been homeless. You don't care for people who can't make rent until you haven't made rent for 6 months. You know what I mean? So I think it really does build a capacity for compassion. And, you know, some people just have it. Like some people just care for animals, even though they never had a pet before. But I think, and the thought came to mind too, like, you know, God will make you struggle in something that you will be overcoming in. So like those who struggle in confidence, I'm sure you'll be ministering to people and how they can be confident within themselves and see value within themselves. So, like you said, like it's just part of life. And, you know, I found myself before always trying to pray my way out of it. Cause like, it's too painful. I'm going to die here. And it's just like, it's just not a reality. And that's also the biggest fight of your feelings are just good indicators, but they're not truth. They're just telling you like, hey, it doesn't feel good to my flesh, but like your spirit, man, is just sitting there like we're fine, you know what I mean? We're literally fine. But and I think that's the battle. And you said before something about what'd you just say? I just lost it. And maybe we'll come back. I guess Holy Spirit was like, don't say it yet. But you said something that was tying into that. But that's pretty much it on that.
I know we talk about mourning, right? What does that love look like for you? Like, was it the fact that you were out in LA living a dream, or like what were you truly mourning?
I think I was more in the idea of what my opportunity would look like my promotion would look like. Because to be real, I wasn't really like I never really felt like LA was my home. I knew that. My mom would like prophesy with me, and she was like, "You're not gonna want to do this much longer." And I just moved to LA, and I was like, "Girl, I'm on the ball." And I always told myself as a kid, like, when I stop loving this craft, I'll stop. Because we do it. I mean, love that makes love. It's a choice. So like when it's a hassle, I will not be a dancer anymore. It's just that's the joy of doing art. It's just you don't have to do it if you don't want to, right? So after I think 2020, everyone's life changed, and I was like, I think I'm done with this. I found some new interests I want to go and look into, and and I had a relationship for the first time after like 4 years of not dating, and I felt like I was mourning the loss of relationship, but also the loss of what I thought it would look like, and also just I guess like the identity that I thought I was holding up. That's why I was like kind of like, who am I, or who did I think I was to other people? Because people start to call things out that you may not see, right? So you're like, yeah, you know what, I am that. So when you're not there, like, wait, everyone thinks I'm this, so I have to keep living up to that idea. And it's like, yeah, but like, hold on a second. Let everyone get out, take a season of solitude to really be like, is this something that people are calling out, or people just see because, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, right? So,
Right.
and that goes back into like passion versus purpose. Like, it just is a passion that's connected to your purpose, or just something that you're just good at and you're just a hobby. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm.
That's so good.
There's so much in there.
Mourning the loss of what you thought it would look like.
That part.
That's so big.
Can we go there?
How
Go
many
there.
of us
Can we go
are
there?
mourning something, and it's, I hate to say it, but it's our own fault because
Yeah.
we didn't
For sure.
surrender to him in the first place.
Yeah.
It's so
So
real.
the vision that we have is not his vision to begin with. So now you're stuck in a depressed state or mourning or whatever the case is over something that was never meant to be anyway.
I feel that. I feel that.
Mhm.
As a recovering overthinker, I think like I'm getting through that. But definitely in retrospect, that's something that has been my narrative, where I would attach myself to certain ideals rather than the reality. So it's like, all right, let's go here. So, okay. So one of my relationships that I had was probably like the most promising relationship that I thought. Like I went through this entire relationship thinking like, okay, this is it. This is it, right? But even having to do the work with my therapist, I come to understand like she's like, you're actually hyper analyzing a lot of things that aren't actually happening.
Right.
So say it's like you're in this relationship with a person, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You take it quite literally, and like now in your brain, you guys are getting married and you're having kids and you have the house. But he never said that.
For sure.
He just said, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, right?
Right.
So it's like I'm taking these things and giving it more benefit of the doubt than it needs to have. So then I get attached to these ideas that's like kind of like a poof of a dream, thinking that that's what's happening. And so I would get so attached that when that relationship ended, I had such an identity shift then again, because I'm like, wait, I thought I was going to be a wife and like a mom and like literally a year from now. Like I literally thought that was all happening next. So then to go back to square one, where I'm like, now I'm at the bottom of the dating pool. I'm like, I don't even want to ask nobody what their favorite color is. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, what do you, I was like right there. What are you talking about? So it's like getting attached to that idea is so real. And I think we do it so, well, I'm only speaking for myself. Like I was doing it so often that I was so familiar with that. And even with like dancing, like when I was in LA, I was like, wow, I'm going to do all this. And like, it would evolve and morph and things where it's like, I just want to be a dancer. Great. I'm on sets. Now I want to be a director because these people look like they got it going on. That's awesome. Actually, I want to be a choreographer because these people are actually putting the steps together. And then I'm actually meeting these choreographers and I'm like, I don't really like the way you're living because you are actually still depressed and your house, like you still rent an apartment.
Facts.
So what's the difference between you and I?
Right.
Like, I don't actually want that. So now I'm like, this is what I was poofing up in my head and it's not real. Now what? So it's like, those are the types of things that we kind of like latch onto that become idols that we think is real, but then it's just a little pin. Pop that.
Whew. That's so real. That's so real. I was one of the most freeing things a person told me was actually not too long ago. It was maybe 2 months ago, before I had my first speaking engagement as a minister. And I was talking to a gentleman who's been a minister for quite some time. He's a younger minister, but he's been in it for some time. And I said, what advice do you give me for the first time I go up there? Like, and he said, if I could tell you anything, I would tell you that 90% of what you expect to happen will not happen when you stand up there.
That's real.
And I was so happy that he gave me that advice, because when I got up there, my voice didn't sound like I thought it was going to sound. The people didn't look like I thought. The room looked different. The mic sounded different. And I think in life, it's much of the same way. Like like you said, attach ourselves to these ideas, how something is supposed to look, how the vision is supposed to come to pass, even how the process of it is supposed to happen. And when it doesn't go that way, we find ourselves in mourning because of this false idea that we had. Yeah. Have you been there?
Always. I mean, as a dreamer and someone who has a deep imagination, we're like, it's going to be major. And I think that just reminds me how finite I am as a human being and how much I need to just keep on like, okay, God, is this it? And also like, it's okay if you get it wrong. Like, Like, I don't know. I thought it would be like this and it wasn't. Okay, we're just going to think again, like not to, live in this place of disappointment or lack of expectation. I believe like faith is expecting something and you need that expectation to like have hope, to like want to wake up in the morning. You know what I mean? But also, I don't know. It's just when it comes to expectation and the vision of it, it's just hard. Even I guess something that I'm still wrestling with, because it's like, well, like it's it's transport to the dream. It's transport to see something come to fruition. But I think, like you said, surrendering the how, but also it's fine if you dream about how it's going to look like. I think that fuels you to get up and write the extra page or like go for the run. It's like, I'm going to have the 6-pack, but maybe 6-pack's a little off and like one's a little higher than the other. Like, but at least you imagined it, and I think we also need to realize that our imagination sometimes is made up of things we've already seen in the flesh. So what you're going to experience, you literally cannot perceive it just yet. So, and having to understand that, like, this is the closest thing I think. And I was journaling a couple days ago and I came across like this thought in my mind and I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask big and expect, receive, and prepare for bigger. So I don't feel disappointed when what I ask for isn't exactly what I asked for, black and white. Pray and ask God for things in detail. Like, I want the purple Cadillac with the gray seats. But and I feel like, because if he gives you the purple Cadillac with the gray seats, you know that he answered your prayer. But also like, or better, because that may, like, who knows, God sees around the corner. Like, you might crash it in a week. So we're going to give you the blue Jeep with the black seats.
Come on,
like,
Jeep.
Jeep
plug. We got Jeeps out here. Jeep plug.
I got Jeep too, babe.
Hey, come on.
But so it's just like understanding that it's a tool, but having to surrender that thought, but also allowing yourself to keep on dreaming, keep on imagining, because that's a catapult.
Yeah. You sound like, I thought you were about to say something.
You speak so eloquently. I love it. I love it, girl.
So, did you have a thought? Or?
No.
Okay.
Just go. Just go. I'm here.
No, that's so big. So speaking of love and loss, we've kind of talked about the loss side of it, the mourning period of it. But another thing that you kind of talked about, you were talking about how it raises the compassion level when you've been there before, on the loss side. But something that I've also experienced personally is the loss also creates an appreciation for when you do have.
Very sure.
I took a lot of things for granted. And it wasn't until God took them all away from me that I was like, oh my God, I'm so thankful I have a microwave. Like, I'm so thankful I have a car to drive. Like, the simple things. And I think it just creates an appreciation. Do you feel that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, a lot of things that we take for granted, it's like, I'm so glad I have this. Like, when I moved home, if you live with your family, even if you're at Christmas for like 1 week, it's like, my family, like, they're all nuts. They're all crazy. I can't get away from them, right? So like, even being home, I was like, oh my God, like I can't stay here. And I talked about this on another episode, but it's just like, I learned to have an appreciation with living with my family, because yes, I get to see the livelihood of my parents, but they're also like slowing down a little. And it also just made me realize some people have lost a parent or both, so it made me grateful even in the moments where I'm like, okay, this is kind of annoying. Where I'm like, wow, you know what, Mom? Tell me more. Tell me more. Dad, what are you doing? What are you, show me what you're working on right now. And then they'll just go on a rant of like all these things. And I'm like, I asked for this. Thank you. Take it in. I love them. But you definitely, what could be taken from you, you also have to have that appreciation, right? But you also have to be immersed in it as well to build that maturity when you're in it. Even when it does feel like, okay, this is not ideal, this is not what I wanted. It's not complaining about it, but actually giving that gratitude. That's going to help you like see it a different way. That's going to actually move you forward, because we need to have that muscle. There's going to be a lot of things in our life that's not the way we want. There's going to be a lot of things in our life that's not like what we think is good for us. But the moment that we're like, okay, how can I learn from this? That's when we move forward into that next season.
I can be a little vulnerable.
Okay.
No, it's just kind of an example of what we're talking about. The year I moved home to Michigan was the pandemic year. I was here and I left. Had a good job here, a good paying job, had my own place, like all that stuff. Up until that point in my life, I had never really experienced any adversity. Like My parents were divorced, but I still had a great relationship with both of them. There was no rifts or anything. But other than that, I hadn't really been through anything. In the year I moved home for the pandemic, I got a job there. I'm working, things are going fine. And I ended up leaving that job, just basically walking away to try and start a business with my dad. Neither one of us had never done it before, but we just jumped out there. And throughout that year that we were running that business, like I went from having extra money, being able to do whatever I want, having my own car to drive, to couldn't pay rent, getting my car repossessed. Like just so much stuff happened during that time that I had never ever experienced. And it wasn't until I walked out of my apartment that day and pressed the button and my car was gone that I realized how lucky I was to have a car in the first place. It wasn't until I woke up one morning and rent was due by 6 p.m. and I didn't have $1 to my name that I was grateful for the jobs that God had provided me with. Like, so that's just what I mean when I say have that appreciation for stuff. It's so easy to take it for granted, especially when He just constantly blessing you and you're living a blessed life.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
It's really hard. One thing I realized too with going through adversity, like we get really embarrassed about it.
Yes.
So like no one ever knows. So you pop up like everything's great.
Right.
And it's like, you don't know my story.
Yeah.
But it's important. So I also like was living in a fabulous luxury apartment that I could not pay for. And I honestly, it's like half and half. I definitely was like, I made the jump way sooner than I should have, but I was like, oh, God's gonna provide. And that's like stupid faith. Like God never told you to do that. But then, you know, and I also learned management skills that way. But you know, it's humbling because it just reminds you like, yo, and it's not like you did anything wrong. You're not being punished. It's just God is sovereign. So God's like, I give and I take away. And you will still praise me if you were my child, right? You know, and I'm like, all right, God's good. And you go about your day. And that's the beauty of having God as a father. He's like, I'll give you grace, but you know, like, especially you saying that you haven't had any adversity. A lot of people who go through life that way, like that type of stuff would crush them. Like, why me? It's not why you, like, why not you? Like, now anything comes your way, you're literally unshakable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we normalize that? Like just being vulnerable and sharing your rock bottoms?
Yeah.
Can we normalize that? Like how can we as Christ culture normalize like sharing our testimonies in the testimony, not after?
That's so real because like you said, a lot of times when you're going through that stuff, it's embarrassing. Like, for example, when I lost my car, my mom didn't know. I was going to my mom's house. I was just showing up. Like, I didn't tell her anything. She had already kind of figured it out because I wasn't showing up in the car anymore. But it's just like those moments are embarrassing because you're like, how did I go from there to here? Am I not good enough? You start asking your questions like that. Am I not good enough? Like, am I a bad person? Did I do something to deserve this punishment? And it's very hard during those moments to just be honest with people around you because, like you said, you just feel embarrassed and it's not fun. So to answer your question, like how can we normalize that? I think we just have to do it more. We just have to be the example and do it more and show people that it's okay. And that you can still be loved by those around you. And not only that, but in doing that, you're going to be helping the other people around you. You're going to be opening up that space for them to do the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. What I was getting, my brain is thinking, but like, okay, so one way that my brain went was like, okay, next time you get your car repossessed, post it on social media. Like, maybe don't do it that bad. Like, maybe not like that. But I think sometimes the embarrassment comes from like, I'm in this position and I don't know what to do next. So how could I even share what's happening? Because I don't even know where the next part is, right? Because I can relate to that. Like when I went through that breakup, I was like, I feel like, okay, God has put me into a season of isolation with my family. Like I'm in the place where I need to like kind of re-blossom, but I also feel like I need to share this, which was kind of like where I was like, I need to share my voice, which led to this podcast. But I was also like, how do I help people through a breakup when I don't even know how to get through this breakup? Like I'm having a hard time just getting out of bed. But like in that moment, I'm like, I know that God is calling me to talk on this. I just don't know how yet. And I'm also like, again, embarrassed because here I am was like, great, I'm flexing right now. I got this like relationship that's like my ideal relationship. It's everything. But like now that I don't have that, who am I? What do I have for me? What is next? So how can we, in those moments of adversity, when we know our testimony is being built out, how can we be more open and vulnerable to share what's happening in our life in a way that it's going to help somebody else who is going through the same thing that we're going through or something similar enough.
Yeah, you got something?
Kind of, but
Go ahead.
you can go first.
You sure?
Throw it. Just keep throwing it.
No, I was just gonna say I think sometimes it's not necessarily that you're, how can I say it, sharing or giving them advice to help them through it, but simply saying that you are going through it. I guess is the best way to say it. So you were talking about like the way you were feeling and you didn't really know what to do next. Sometimes it's just sharing that gives other people a breakthrough. Like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. Like, I don't know what to do in this situation, and I'm not the only one experiencing that. I think that can be powerful in itself.
I was going to add timing, and I'm a Bible nerd, but the story of Joseph comes to mind because Joseph had that dream, and then his brothers hated him for it. You're going to bow down to me? It's like, we hate you because you're the youngest or whatever, and our dad likes you better than all of us. So I feel like timing, because when that's why I have mixed views on social media. I think it's an amazing tool, but I think it's also a huge weapon that hurts a lot of us mentally. So when I was leaving, I was like, no one has to know, like, just yet.
Yeah.
A premature seed will die, right? So no one had to know. Those who knew I was leaving is because I told you, hey, I'm going to be out of here soon. It wasn't like this big announcement, because you have to use discernment. You speak a word. That's why I was watching something about like near success syndrome, like, you know, when you're about to get the breakthrough and it just falls apart. Like, there are spirits that do that type of work, right? And I was like, that reminds me, because I would call a friend about a big job and then not get the job, and you'd be like, oh, I guess it wasn't for me. No, that was a spirit that was sent to not make sure you didn't get that job. And I'm like, okay, so it's all discernment and timing when to share, but also when it's time, because I shared on my social media when I moved, but only because Holy Spirit's like, okay, now it's time to talk. It was like a month and a half in, so being sensitive to be like, okay, God, now it's time. And just like you, I do feel called to share, because I understand that there's people who look up to us. It's just the fact of the matter. So when I shared courageously and honestly. And then when I shared, it was crazy to see people who were like, you know what, I'm going through the same thing. I was shocked, people who were in my DMs that were like, I moved too, or I have not been able to make ends meet myself, and I'm actually really depressed. I said, looking at people like you too. And it's just crazy because we're all just hiding it until someone explodes. We just pray that's not something that's fatal. You know what I mean? So to answer that question, I feel like timing and discernment for sure. And also in whatever medium God says, what if it's with a friend, if it's on social media, because I'm still trying to find the balance of like my personal life being private, but also still ministering, being honest. I'm like, okay, God, like, not everyone needs to know. It just is. It's just not everyone needs to know, because not everyone has the best things. Some people were like, we're proud of you. Some people were like, yes, finally. You never know. You never know the thoughts of your enemies who happen to be people who follow you. So I think really harp on discernment and timing on that.
Oh, yeah.
I think timing is huge. And one of the things that comes to mind is the fact that, unlike God, the enemy is not all knowing. So sometimes when you speak things out loud, you're informing him of what's going on. So I like what you said about timing. Sometimes you got to hold it to yourself until the right moment. And sometimes it's not even up to you to reveal everything. Sometimes God will do that on his own. He'll put you on that platform. You don't need to go and try to make yourself known to the world. He'll take care of that for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with timing, discernment, and all that. You know, it's like, because when I was going through that, I knew that I didn't need to go into a hole, even though I was like, yeah, I can only do so much right now. But I knew that I needed to resort to him first. And then I also needed to resort to my creativity. I was like, I need to create something. I need to use this as my fuel. Whether it's like I just paint, or like I just go out and make a dance, or like something. I need to do something, just because I know that if I wallow in this, it's not going to be good. So finding an avenue with our loss, what is something that you guys kind of lean towards outside of God that helps you in those seasons?
I'm learning more so now to be able to depend on those around me, those close to me, more so than I did in the past. So in those seasons where I won't say I can't go to God, because you can always go to God, but when I don't go to God, or, you know, when God gives me some direction, but I still feel down, I'll put it that way. I'm learning to just lean on those around me and allow them to carry some of that weight, because that's what they're there for. That's why they're your friends and your family, to help you through those little times and kind of bear some of that weight. So I would definitely say my loved ones. Yeah.
That's important. That's really
Definitely
important.
same. Loved ones indeed. I'm an avid journaler, love to write.
Love journaling.
I also love YouTube. I feel like there's so many great people who just speak so much life. So when I don't want to create, when I'm like, I don't have energy to be the artist, I just want to be a human, I'm like, go look at other people and just let them speak life into me. And they'll be like, hey, how to deal with burnout, how to deal with creativity, how to deal with brain fog. I think that's also very helpful as well.
Yeah.
I love that.
What about you?
It's like, yeah.
I had to tap into like the things that I enjoy for me, myself. So it'd be less of like, hey, do you want to go do this with me? It's like, I detach from anybody else's desire to do what I want to do. I would just go and do it.
For sure.
Like for me, it has been doing my nails. Don't look at my pinky, it fell off. But doing my nails, like that is like literally my like self-love thing that I do every 2 weeks, and it just brings me so much peace. I'll like put on a YouTube, or if I'm feeling like a Netflix movie or just some music, I'll just vibe out and like do whatever. Like I don't even know how I come up with these, like I'll go on Pinterest, but like I do that. And then I also I do like to collab with people. I do like to collab. Whether I'm doing my own self-love thing or going and being like, hey, like what's an idea that you have? Let's kind of like bounce ideas. And that's my version of like speaking life into people. Because I do see a lot of potential in a lot of people. So I'm like, okay, you have this idea, but how can you make it like 1% greater? Or like, what is something that I'm thinking that you're thinking that we could also like bring it together and make something even grander? So like, that's something that I like to play with. And yeah, I think those are definitely my creative sides, but I need those. And God be using.
One more thing before we kind of move on here.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear both of your point of views here. During those seasons of loss or those low points, and this is something that I've dealt with, which is why I'm interested to hear about it. It's very easy to retreat within yourself and not want to be around other people, not want to share what's going on. So how do you handle those low moments and not retreating inwardly and just completely isolating and separating yourself during those seasons of loss?
That's a really good question, because I haven't really conquered that yet. I think I'm getting a little bit better now, because I had a little bit of paranoia. I was like, I don't trust anyone right now. I feel like maybe it's just the season of isolation, and I'm like, I can't fight it. So that's why I was journaling a lot. But it is a blessing to have people you really do look up to, and I had to learn who to really vent to. Like, I also learned about friendships and their levels. Like, you have people who are your actual friends, your equals. You have people who you look up to. You have people that you're pouring into. You know what I mean? And I would always tell people the wrong things. So I would get advice and I wouldn't feel better. I just wouldn't. And I was like, I wasn't talking to the right person. So like, you're not going to talk to someone single about being married. Like, how do I be a wife? I don't know. Like, we just don't know yet. So I just felt like I always was just wrong in who I spoke to. So I really would go talk to people that I really do look up to. Like, hey, I'm struggling. Like, you're succeeding in your mindset. I love the way you live your life. And I think I'm so talkative. I would just talk to anyone and always like word vomit about how I feel. And it's like, which is important, but like, was I looking for a solution or was I looking to vent? Which is all fine, but then is when you're wanting to go vent to the person who wants solutions, you're gonna feel frustrated. So you have to go to the right person or tell like, hey man, like today I just want to vent. I don't want no problem solving. You know what I mean? Like, just being clear on that too. So I wasn't in my head like worrying that if I go talk to this person, I'm not gonna feel better. It's like, you have to take the risk to be seen trying to heal, be seen trying to be better. And at first I just wasn't willing to do it because I was too down bad. I was like, I do not want to take no more hits. You know what I mean? So I definitely am still actually working on that right now. But that's what I've been trying to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I love that. I think in my experience, it was balance of both, where I could be a hermit, And the type of work that I was doing, I was teaching kids. So like typically you don't start teaching until like the end of the day, like afternoons, right? So like I would take my mornings and have like a full morning, whether it be like going on a walk or just kind of journaling or doing what I want, go get a smoothie and just have a chill day, or just like staying in bed until it's time to go teach. But the dynamic of me facing my feelings and being alone compare like and with going to have to be a role model for kids taught me a lot about myself and my journey as well, because kids will teach you a lot about yourself, and they speak to that inner child in you. So getting to be like, okay, this is what I'm going through right now. I'm heartbroken, whatever. But now I have to go face these 10-year-olds and tell them that they're amazing and they have so much going for them. It helped me, one, be a better educator, because I could meet them where they were at, where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go tell you you're going to like, everything's going to be all right. Like, let's actually sit down and like talk about it. And so there was a few times in the weeks or like the months, I guess, where I'd just be like, I do a vibe check. I'll be like, all right, vibe check. What are we feeling today? And they'd be like, I'm so tired. I'm like, I don't know. I'm really stressed right now. I'm like, baby, what are you stressed about? Like, what do you got going on? And so we would just like have a sit down and we would just talk. I'm like, all right, great. We'll just have like a meditation improv day and let's just talk it out. And so it wasn't until I had moments like that where I'm like, I'm glad they want this, because I also don't have anything to teach you right now. I'm actually just going through it. So we would just talk. And what I found is that these kids didn't have the outlet to express their words with somebody that they could trust. They don't have a big sister role who's been through enough life to be like, okay, this is what you're going to go through as a young woman, and even maybe not even have that with their own mother. So for me to be like, okay, I'm at this age of my life, I could tell you that I still have negative thoughts, and that's normal. Like, you're a teenager, you're 10 years old, and you're thinking like you're not good enough. Like, I don't mean to scare you, but that's not going to go away. But this is what you're going to have to do to fix, like, to deal with that. You're going to have to learn how to manage these feelings. And so having that connection with them was healing for me, because I was speaking to my inner baby Key, but also having them speak to their older version of themselves to be like, okay, let's face each other and see like where we're connected, because we are. We're the same. We're the same. So it was a balance between like, okay, let me see where Kiana's feeling right now. I am in a hole. Let me go face these kids. They're kind of in a hole too, but let's come out of it together. And it was so empowering. Really good. It was very empowering.
Wow. Good advice from both of you. How are we feeling about this conversation?
Amazing. Blessed.
I think this is a really good one.
Yeah.
It's going to touch a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get into some questions?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
My first question. What did you just ask them? The last thing you asked them? How do we go through that whole...
Oh, yeah, without isolating yourself, basically.
Okay.
Intro.
All right, so this next portion of our show, hold on. All right, so this next portion of our show is called Questions from the Audience, where we answer questions that you guys have left in the comments or anything that our audience has here. So we're going to hand it over to our executive producer, and he's going to ask us some questions.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. All righty. So, first question. How can one continue to grow in their faith and deepen their relationship with God during times of loss? Again, how can one continue to grow in their faith and deepen their relationship with God during times of loss?
I think that's probably the most important time to connect with God. That's like the most crucial time to connect with God, because when everything has been taken from you, we can easily go to any other vice that we know is not going to be beneficial for us. So going to the one source that you know is only going to speak life into you, that's when, in my experience, that I got closer to God, and get closer to God every single time I'm down or have a low point or have a loss. Yeah, I think just being like focusing. Okay, so exchanging what you lost, whatever was up here, exchange that for God. And that's where you get that. Was that my camera? Oh. Anyways. Exchanging what you had up here for God is where you build that relationship. Because typically anytime we go through a loss, that's it's in some way or another God being like, I need that attention from you. So take that same energy that you're putting into this goal, this idea, this job, whatever it is, and put God there and be like, okay, I want to study this. I want to get to know you. I want to figure this out with you. I want to learn. I want to be humbled. I want to be corrected. And that to me is where I find my relationship with him.
The first words that comes to mind is you have to be honest. Like a lot of people who believe in God or not, they feel like they can't take their disappointments or ill feelings to God. So a lot of my friends who are believers, but baby Christians are like, well, like I don't know how to pray, and it's like, you know how to talk to me, you know how to pray, you know what I mean? But we think this over religious thing, and when my best friend passed away, I was like, you let her die. And I was like, going to like my African mother who's a believer, who's like, God's sovereign. You can't question God. I'm not questioning God. I'm telling you, God, like, and actually I do have questions for you, God. Why did she die? Why did she have to die like that? You know what I mean? And I feel like that moment, and that happened in the past couple years, I was just getting loss after loss, hit after hit. And I was like, okay, God, like, this is the personality you gave me, so you can handle it. And I think we have to stop trying to spare God our humanity. He made us. He knows you got the attitude. He knows that you cuss sometimes. He knows that, you little bit this and that. And I feel like when I can sit in my car on the way here, in whatever place I'm at, and be like, well, I'm disappointed because I really thought that you're going to do it, but you did not. So how are you good when I don't feel like you're good? I think that is where you get to the nitty gritty of any relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think we negate that because we're like, well, God is sovereign. Yes, he's sovereign, but also I don't understand. So help me to get it. And I feel like that is where you really get to know God. Because I feel what I've been trying to do too when I talk to people is we kind of pushing past the cliches. Because it's like, okay, God, well, I don't feel you. In relationships, I can sit and talk to you guys and I can feel your energies and the nuances, but I don't feel you. So how do I know? And I think in those moments we start to learn, but that takes patience and that takes the routine of getting into that space.
Absolutely. That's real.
I don't think these powerful women need me to say anything else. So
Yeah,
just go to the next question.
You belong here.
Well, then you answer the question
Okay.
first.
I got you.
So, how can I incorporate prayer and meditation into my grieving process to find peace and healing? So again, how can I incorporate prayer and meditation into my grieving process to find peace and healing?
I think during that grieving process, number one, you have to recognize that it is necessary. And that ultimately the only way that you're going to come out and be whole again is with the collaboration of Jesus. You have to take those things to him in order for him to make you whole again, because you're not going to be able to do it on your own, in your own strength, in your own will. In your weakness, he is made strong. So I think that you have to pray to him. I think that you have to take your issues to him. And like she said, I think you have to be honest about it in those situations, and know that he's going to help you to get back to where you need to be. It might not feel good. It might not look like you thought it was going to, but ultimately, if you don't seek him and allow him to do it through you, it's only going to be to your own detriment. Yeah.
I think you said to incorporate prayer and meditation. Meditation wasn't something I was quite familiar with, but I know that I needed to be still because I was anxious of what I couldn't control. Like I was getting anxious because I'm like, well, if this isn't going to happen now, then when is it going to happen? And now I'm putting a timeline on it. Like, oh, it's going to happen. It needs to happen in the next 6 months. Then I need to be over this in 6 months. And then I get to 6 months. And I'm like, I'm still not over it. Is this wrong? Like, am I doing something? Am I focusing on something? Like, what's wrong with me? So incorporating prayer and peace. Well, yeah, incorporating peace, but incorporating that meditation into my life looked like getting into the Bible, finding a scripture that either I was led to, or finding a scripture that I resonated with or something. Even if I didn't resonate with it, I picked a scripture and I tried to memorize it enough that when I'm sitting in it, I only just think on that scripture. Like I literally will go outside or close my door, whatever it is, and just literally meditate on it in silence for like even 5 minutes, even 2 minutes sometimes, where I'm like, okay, let me actually soak this word in and see how I can let it apply to my life. And with prayer too, it's like taking that honesty, being so blunt with God of like, I'm angry right now. Like I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. I'm sad. I'm confused and all these things, and be like, God, I know that these feelings are valid. I know that I'm allowed to feel them, but like, what do you want me to do with this? And like, why do you want me to have this right now? Because I know that it's going to be for somebody else. And maybe it was for these kids that I was coaching, whereas like they came to me like, I broke up with my boyfriend wants to break up with me and he's in the military. I'm like, what? I was like, oh, how are you feeling? Let's sit down and talk about it. But just taking those as much time as you can to give your undivided attention to God is one thing that I think is really important in those grieving times.
As you were talking, I was looking up the definition of meditation and prayer. And I was
Ooh.
like, I don't really know exactly what that actually means. I don't really meditate really. But I looked up meditation and it says the act of practicing meditating. Then I was like, then I looked up what is the actual meaning, and it says to engage in mental exercise such as concentration on one's breathing or repetition of a mantra for the purpose of reaching a heightened level of spiritual awareness. And your question was how to incorporate that into everything. I feel we meditate on the wrong things. Like what are your thoughts in layman's terms? What are you constantly thinking about? And I think you have to actively switch your thoughts. You actively use that little voice in your mind that you can just say hello right now and switch it. And it says like casting down all thoughts and making them subject to under God. It's like, yo, like if I think I'm not strong or good enough, then it's like I'm good enough. And you have to keep on saying that. And sometimes you have the strength because we're human and you have the energy to do it. And sometimes you don't. And it just is what it is. And then, so that was meditation. And then prayer, it says a solemn request for help or expression of thanks addressed to God or an object of worship, which is just really like just the act of conversation and not making it so sacrilegious. Like I need to, and there's a posture of everything. So sometimes you're going to be called to get on your knees or lay down on your face. But like as I'm doing my makeup, laying my wigs, like doing my nails, like simple things, like I'll just be in my brain talking, be like, okay, God, well, I don't know what to pray today, but it says you say to not stop praying. So, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
And like, and that just having to be okay and taking off all expectations of what you think should come with and how it should sound and be. And that's how you keep it on. You got to remember, like, you'll find out as you find out.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
We good? This segment of our podcast is called SOS, Subject on the Spot, where you will have 60 seconds to do a little mini sermon. You're going to be given a topic and you're going to be given a word that you have to use during that sermon. We're going to get our topics and our words from our producer today. So
Cal's
first,
go
I'm going first, right?
You going first?
Cal's
guess
going
so.
first this time.
Okay.
What we got?
Should we leave?
Give me a couple seconds.
Just pick.
Just make one.
Can you hear me up?
Install it.
Tiles.
Tiles.
Yes. And your word that you're going to use with tiles is clouds.
Clouds? My gosh.
Clouds.
Right? Tiles is the topic and clouds is your word.
Interesting.
Clouds. Tiles and clouds.
God, that's not mine.
The clouds that's getting me. I don't know where I'm gonna go with this.
Sometimes
You ever seen the tiles in a bathroom, like on the floor or in the shower?
Yeah.
I think that's much of like our life. We have a pile of tiles and we're trying to arrange them in a nice pattern to make the bathroom look nice, to make our life go the way that we want it to go. But you have to put something between those tiles. I used to work in construction. You have to put something between those tiles to make them stay in place. And that's called grout. God is like grout. God is the thing that makes your tiles stay in place. So he allows you the freedom, the imagination, the creativity to place your tiles where you want them. So it looks like you want them to look, but he wants you to put him in the middle of all of that to make them stay put. So when you place those tiles where you need them to be and you look out that window at the clouds in the sky, just know that there is a God above who can cement your tiles in place for eternity.
Beep, 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 beep,
Amen.
beep, beep, beep. Look out the window and see.
The clouds, man. What am I supposed to do with clouds?
I thought you were gonna say something like build the tiles.
To the
To
sky.
to the clouds. Just layers of tiles. Layers.
Oh my God.
It's funny.
You want to go next or close it out?
I'll go next. You can
Okay.
close it out.
Oh, God.
Hold on.
I'm scared.
The topic is
So initially, I was like, I'm gonna give her Nigerian jollof rice. He's done yet.
rice.
But I was like,
Don't even do it to me, sis.
I
I want peace. I want peace.
We're not gonna do that today.
I actually really like jollof rice from Ghana. It's really good.
Can you speak into the mic when you say it again,
I
please?
really like Ghanaian. Is it Ghanaian or? Okay, great. Ghanaian jollof rice is amazing.
Hey, this is the Nigerian that said, "Oh, okay."
wait,
Oh,
Earthquake.
you made
And
my
your
earthquake.
word,
I'm sorry. Your topic is earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
and your word is unmovable.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Sometimes life is like an earthquake, and sometimes you have to check the foundation of your life. Think about yourself as a tree. Your tree is planted into the ground. Trees usually do not leave. Trees usually do not leave the earth after I guess 30 to 100 years. You are unshakable. You know why? Because you have a strong foundation. Your seed of life, you only need this much faith, which is a mustard seed. Oh, my mustard seed necklace. It's a mustard seed. You can zoom in if you like.
Love that.
That's all you need in order to be immovable, unshakable. Life will come, it will knock you down, but you fall 7 times and you get back up 8. That's all.
15 more seconds.
Just say amen 15 times.
Amen.
Amen. Amen
yeah.
again.
Yeah, I don't really
Amen.
know. I guess, and sometimes earthquakes happen, but after a big earthquake, there's always reconstruction. Things can always be built back up again.
Beep, 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 beep. There we go.
That's actually very difficult.
It's hard, right?
And you don't even know the timing, so it's like
Right.
it felt like
where
a
are
nice
we?
pin,
Has
but
it been a minute? It's been 5 minutes. All right. Give it to me. Fire alarm is my word. My
Fire alarm.
okay. Fire alarm.
Fire alarm is your topic, and your word is snow.
Snow. All right.
3, 2, 1.
All right. Sometimes in life, we could feel like we're in a moment of emergency. Like there's so many things happening that we get overwhelmed that we feel like a fire alarm is going off in our brain, and we just can't turn it off until the paramedics come, till the firemen come, right? So it's not until we call onto these paramedics, which is God, to come and save us from the tragedy that is happening in our home. And once they come to take the water and put the fire out, we realize we go outside and it's winter. It's not even like the whole world is burning down. It's actually snowing. And it's completely different. And once we get God to come in and save us, it's like he brings so much peace, and it's just a winter wonderland. Once he puts out that fire for us, we just step outside and it's cool, and we're not even burned. We're not burned. We're saved.
Amen.
Amen. We're not even
That's so
burned.
hard, dude.
Like we
Good thinking.
still waiting on the audience to send in their SOSs, like SOS challenge on IG. Hello.
They don't want that smoke.
They don't want
that
it. They don't want it.
I really wanted to give you carbon monoxide.
Oh.
Oh gosh.
I'll save it for a rainy
Thank
day.
you. Thank you for. Wow.
Dude.
Save the hard ones for him. Wow, my girl. That was amazing.
It was.
I know we definitely blessed some people with that conversation because I was
For sure.
feeling that.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us,
Thank you
girl.
for having me.
Yeah.
And where can we find you?
Where can you find me? You can find me.
Are you on social right now?
I mean, am I half and half? You can find me at Tsola System on Instagram.
How you spell it?
TSOLA System.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. I
Until
really love
next-
this a lot, honestly.
Yeah. Until next time. Peace.
Thank you guys for watching Christ Culture the podcast. If this resonated with you, make sure to share it.
Yeah, go follow us on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and leave some comments. We want to hear from you guys this season.
Definitely join in the conversation because we'd love to stay connected with y'all.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
Peace.